Hello and welcome to episode 6 of News from the Gelding. Now, as usual, I'll first talk about what I've done in the week, and then if you look below, there's a couple of timestamps. So later on I'm going to talk about a short film I made 12 years ago or so, and then the film will be at the very end. So if you want to cut straight to the film without hearing what it's about and just get your first impression, do that, or because I'm going to ramble now, just to warn you, so skip ahead. Okay. So first thing, you can probably notice that I've had a haircut, and this was because I had my interview for the taxi license test. Now, aside from all the hoops you've got to jump through, medical knowledge, driving test, what else? Lots of things. You've also got to show to the interviewer that you would be a safe driver in terms of your personality, I suppose. So they have to determine whether they would be happy with their son or daughter or elderly relative being transported by me. And as you know, I've still got quite a big beard, but I probably didn't look like a taxi driver or like a driver, so I thought I'd clean myself up a little bit. There we are. So the knowledge test, I spent the weekend before adding to what little I knew about the surrounding area. I mean, there's so many different villages that are in mid-Devon. It was just crazy, really, but I did what I could, and had the test, and I just scraped by. Luckily, I was prepared to fail. I just didn't think it was going to be possible, but it was fine. But just. But the lady that interviewed me said, we know you're not going to have to know all these places because I would just be doing school runs, but I still had to pass this test, so that was quite lucky. And here's the badge. Here's my this was taken before my haircut, and my beard looks quite black there. It's quite nice, not like this grey old thing I've got hanging off my face now. But anyway, what else? Work-wise, in terms of my book, I got a proof copy through, which I've got here. I'm not going to show you much of it because it's not very good. So you have to follow various guidelines for making your print book, and I followed them all, but it still went wrong. But I've looked on lots of different forums, and it seems quite an imprecise process, even though they provide templates and whatnot. So to give an example, one of the main issues I had with the cover is that the contrast was totally wrong. So this is the back of the cover. It's a glossy finish. There's supposed to be a picture there. You can just see a faint ghost of an image maybe, but it's not there, it's gone. So I've submitted another one. I think I know what I did wrong. I might do another video talking about this because it's very technical, and it might help other people if they're trying to do the same thing. I'm having to find out the hard way. But I think everyone's having to do that because there doesn't seem to be any definitive thing to follow, a foolproof way to follow. So anyway, the only other thing is I finally started painting the image for the front cover. At the moment I've been using a colorized version of the drawing I showed you a couple of weeks ago. So now I'm doing a painting, that's why the easel's behind me. And I'm going to be doing a time lapse of that, so you'll see the process when I've finished. So it's just down there. So I've just been doing the underpainting so far. I'm using oils, and sometimes it's easier to do an underpainting to get a bit more depth and just to make it not so fiddly. I did a couple of hours in the morning yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. And it went wrong. So I had to scrape it all off, and I lost the drawing underneath, and so I wasn't amused. I just drew it just by hand, and it's okay. It's okay. It's a good place to start from. Anyway, there we are. There's that. Right, I'm trying not to ramble so much because people aren't watching these. Will probably get put off by me rambling. But anyway, so as I've got no work as such to show you from the book, I thought I'd show you an old film I made. Well, it's about 12 years ago now. It's when I went to art college as a mature student, and for the first year I more or less did traditional painting, drawing, and then we were introduced to film and sound art, and absolutely loved it, and that's what I ended up doing. So this film I'm going to show you it's only the second film I made, but it's interesting to show it because it links to what I've been talking about in the past about when I lived in Japan. Now this is a fairly sad subject matter. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but I was living with a host family for most of the year, and I was working for them as well, and they had a young daughter at the time, and unfortunately 6 months into my stay she had a bad accident in the garden outside the home, and unfortunately she died. So I found this very, very hard to deal with at the time and for a long time afterwards. But I made a film about it. Now the film, I've got some notes here. It's all made from still images because I didn't make any films whilst I was living in Japan. So it's all still images. And at the time I was influenced by a film I'd seen, a French film that was called La Jetée, which was, if you've ever seen the science fiction film 12 Monkeys, that was based on La Jetée. But La Jetée is, so it's a science fiction idea about time travel, but it's all told through still images, black and white images. So I thought that was a really nice way of, I mean, if you can tell a whole film in still images, you can do a short film in the same way, and quite a lot of impact. So that's why that's the basis I used for making the film. At the same time, I mean, La Jetée is all narrated, and the story is told over these images. Well, I wasn't going to speak at all. So I used a very small sound clip that I had from that time. Now, because I was living in rural Japan in 2001 or so, the internet existed, but it was all on dial-up, and we had a very poor connection that hardly ever worked. So my main contact with my family at that time was through letters. So occasionally I'd make a cassette tape and record a kind of audio diary. Now one day when I was recording, I recorded a snippet of the little girl running down the corridor outside, and after she passed away, I always remembered that I had that's the only thing I had of her that was kind of alive, you know, rather than photographs. There was a physical trace of her existence. So I used that little clip. It's only a few seconds long, but I was interested at the time in kind of minimalist composers, and one of them was Steve Reich. Now he used to do a lot of work with phasing, so you get two or more different pieces of music or tracks or whatever, and you make them go out of phase with each other. It can be a very simple repeating thing, but when you stretch one of them slightly, it goes out of time with the other track. So you've got one that goes slightly slower, and they start separating very slowly over a period of time and then coming back together. So I treated this sound clip in the same way, and so I stretched it in various ways, but for the film it's stretched to around 4 minutes, the duration of the film. So that the few seconds then becomes something more. You know, you explore it in a different way. It becomes its own thing. It becomes dynamic. You'll see when you see the film. So when the film begins, you hear just the repeating sample, and then you'll see the part where it phases. The content of the actual film is photographs I took whilst I was living there, and they're up to the middle point. They're photographs of the girl, you know, when time I spent with her and the family, and then the middle part indicates the accident really, and then afterwards kind of reflection on her passing, the things that are left. Yeah, there's lots of detail I could go into, but there's no I'll talk about it more if anyone's interested another time, but it's fairly powerful. I think it still stands up, I think. I watched it for the first time in years yesterday. Anyway, see what you think. Right, yeah, so I'll show the film now. I probably won't come back to say goodbye, so I'll say goodbye now. Yes, this coming week I'm going to be working more on the painting if it dries in time. I mean, I think it's going to take a while for this one to dry, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, right, have a nice week, and if all goes to plan, I'll see you all on Friday, next Friday. Okay, cheerio. Bye.